Welcome back to That Rugby Podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth. It's your boy Luke Husey. Look, Super Rugby sucks. Super Rugby fucking sucks. We can both admit that. Look, I'm wearing a Moana Pacifica jersey to make me feel slightly better about your loss, because what I've worked out now, the Blues are going to win 2 games this year. It's going to be against my fucking Hurricanes. So I'm sitting here like, rugby, Super Rugby, it sucks. We suck. Our team suck. We both deserve to suck. We suck. Look, you were in a bigger bin than I'm in, so I'm going to let you start off about that horrendous second half that you endured.
Yeah.
So, you start off, and then I'll let my pang out.
Yeah, look, great first half from the Waratahs. Great first half. I thought having Tane Latupu on the bench was going to be a good thing. Less minutes for him to play, less of the fitness issues to come into play. And we saw that in the first half. Waratahs really had some nice moments. So Joseph Suaalii just, any time he touched the ball, he made something happen. I saw a tweet, I think it was from Rugby Report Card or something like that, where they said, Israel Folau scored tries, Suaalii sets them up. Like, that's what he just allows so many more scoring opportunities. I don't know, just every time he sees the ball, just seemed to break through a track or just glide through a space that you didn't think he could get through, and then set, Teddy Wilson was all over the place, like scooping up balls, getting ready to score tries and whatnot. So, Great work there. And I think Tristan Riley had some great runs, but the pace on him is impressive. And the forward pack held their own in the first half. Second half comes around, and boy, oh boy, it was a different story. Almost like two different teams, and the change was noticeable once the interchange came on, really. Look, with the Waratahs attack in the first half, it wasn't really out of what you call set plays, I guess, or there wasn't much playmaking from the 10, Lawson Crichton. It was really the back three having, creating opportunities out of nothing. I think Moana Pacifica realized that, and really shifted their attention to, preventing the back three from doing anything. Said basically challenged Lawson Crichton to, it's on you now to crack us, to set things up to crack us, and he wasn't good enough for the job. We've seen that now quite a few games in, like really not offering too much. Similar with Joey Walton, this doesn't offer anything really from a Super Rugby level perspective. I think a serviceable player when you've got injuries, but not someone that should be, I don't know. Yeah, it was tough for me to watch those. But the big one for me definitely has to be Tane Latupu. And I say big one not only because of his size, but also because of his reputation and then what he's putting out there on the field. Now, one thing I will say is that I don't think it's any secret that the Waratahs is not where Tane Latupu wanted to end up. I think he would still happily be in Melbourne. I think if the Reds had the money to have re-signed him back, they would have taken him. Or, maybe the Reds thought, actually, no, we don't want Tane Latupu, and the only place for him was the Waratahs. But other than maybe the Western Force, maybe he wanted to go to Perth even less than he wanted to come to Sydney. Anyway, that's personal preference. It is what it is. But when you get paid to play and paid to do a job, you do that job. And so far this year, I have not seen that out of Tane Latupu in anything like a consistent manner. Right? There was noticeable less urgency when he was on the field in the second half. Penalised for back-chatting to the referee after already being penalised for being offside from a lack of effort. Like, that's the biggest thing that I think is rubbing a lot of fans the wrong way, is it's an apparent lack of effort. And I say apparent because we don't really know. We don't know. There might be something else going on that we just don't know about. But just from what our perspective looks like, what we're looking at seeing this game is an apparent lack of effort. And I texted you during the game that I said, I don't think Tane Latupu is going to get a Wallabies jersey. I think there are enough other players sticking their hands up. Alan Alatoa, Tom Robertson, of the Western Force with that, 2 weeks ago, tremendous length of field try. Really putting his hand up. The props over at the Queensland Reds as well, doing a fantastic job up there as well. So yeah, it's you look at it and you just like, I don't know if the way that Tane Latupu is playing fits in with Joe Schmidt's style that he wants. I think he puts a lot more emphasis on effort over talent and commitment over talent, and especially commitment over talent. I think is the big one, as is in with the preference to select local players rather than those from overseas. That shows he's like, I want you to be committed to Australian rugby to be playing for the Wallabies. Well, part of being committed to Australian rugby is playing hard in Super Rugby games. You can't just save it all for the Wallabies games. You need to get selected for the Wallabies first. And at the end of the day, Super Rugby also pays a lot of the bills. There's a new broadcast deal announced either today or yesterday, very, very recently, with an uptick in revenue there. And that's because of Super Rugby. That is the main product that people are watching. There are a limited number of Wallabies this year. There's far more Super Rugby games. So there's far more money coming in from Super Rugby that's where you need to perform as well. So overall, it was really disappointing to watch as a Waratahs fan because it felt a little bit like falling back in on old habits. It felt a bit like players were being selected when they really probably shouldn't have been. A number of issues, and especially because you could see the potential of this Waratahs team. You could see that when they're on, they can challenge anybody. But when they're struggling, they really struggle. And it's the classic story. They've won by narrow margins, but get blown out. And that's going to come back to bite them come finals time.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna play devil's advocate now, not for your Waratahs, but for how great Moana Pacifica are. And
I haven't even. I wanted to leave that until next. But before you can claim I'm just a one-eyed Waratahs fan, Moana Pacifica played amazing. Artie Savia is doing some tremendous with it, but all of those players are fantastic. Like huge effort from them as well. When they were down a bit against the Waratahs, you think, oh, are they going to come? So no, they stayed in it. They fought back. They went, did the hard yards to get themselves back into the game, and then kept the foot on the gas and didn't allow the Waratahs to get back in the game once they were on top. Like absolutely fantastic effort from Moana Pacifica.
Yeah, and I totally wasn't saying that you were one-eyed, but you are one-eyed. But off that, we're all idiots, aren't we? We're all idiots. Like, all of us pundits, all of us people who think we know anything about rugby, we went, look, this Moana Pacific team's good, and we're just going to give them Artie Savia, and they'll be all right. And, both of us said, I think that we had them around the top 6. Maybe one of us chucked them in there, I can't remember. But we both went, at least they're not going to win enough games, probably. We've now given the Warriors, our Pacific Island brothers, their chief and their leader in Artie Savia, and we just expected nothing to happen. Like, how dumb are we to think that he wasn't? And then all those people were like, oh, is he going to be able to play up to a level? He's gone a level one above of what he had to do with the Hurricanes and is playing around. And I'm just sitting there like, we're all idiots. We all thought, like, no All Black can go to Moana Pacifica and make that much of a difference. Yes, they can. And it's not just like, yes, he's performing, but he's been out for games where they've won. Like, he came off against the Hurricanes at halftime. I go, it is just having that leadership, having that experience in the camp.
Yeah, 100%.
Having someone who is a well-known winner in the rugby world. He gets himself to finals. He wins rugby championships. He's won a Super Rugby title. He gets to finals of Super Rugby. So I go, having a player like that in and around their camp, and then the rest of them elevating the performance. As you said, they're never out. Like, the Moana Pacifica are old, who used to get spanked by 60 when they first came into the comp, and they would just stay down. This team will be down by 30, and you're like, well, fucking count them out at your own perils. So I go, we're all idiots. To double down on that, I'm the massive idiot. I spoke very highly of Riley Hohepa as we tore apart your Waratahs last week, and he had one of the most shocking performances in a Hurricanes jersey. And again, it happens. Couldn't kick the ball to save himself. Finding touch, which, I'm a massive judger of because I also do that all the time in rugby and miss touch. Couldn't kick goals, which, again, I'm not very good at either, but I'm going to judge someone who's professionally paid to do it. So, look, the Hurricanes are thinking of making a change at the 10 jersey to Ruben Love potentially slotting in there against the Crusaders. It's been our question mark probably for the past few years. We had Rick Cameron do a serviceable enough job, but, lost the semi-final at home. And the Blues, we fucking lost to again. And we lost to them by a point, and we shouldn't have lost to them because they suck. They really do suck. They are the worst team in the comp, in my belief, even worse than the Drua. I watched that game and I was like, they suck. Bowden Barrett's the only good player left on their team. Finlay Christie's lost it. Patrick Tuipulotu is very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but still got yellow carded in this game. Everywhere else, they suck. They suck, and we sucked even worse than them to lose that game. So that's where I'm at mentally. There's been a whole lot of shit just this week, and I haven't even been able to comprehend the amount of shit after watching us lose to the Blues because they suck. But saying that, again, both of our teams are now right on that line of playoff potential, and it's getting close now when you're starting to have these discussions. And as I said to you, I said those Moana Pacific teams, even if they don't make the finals, they're going to ruin some teams' dreams. Crusaders beat last week. You guys beat this week. Now they're starting to build their own dreams. Reds starting to build. Again, all of these things kicking into gear. I know they didn't beat the Chiefs, but again, it's becoming that interesting time of the season, that middle point of the season where team seasons are make or break coming up.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, let's look at a top of the table clash between the Chiefs and the Reds. Now, I am similar to you in that I don't like to lay results at the feet of referees. However, I have almost never seen a more one-sided refereed game. than the one between the Chiefs and the Reds. To the point where the commentators themselves, the New Zealand commentators, I will point out, were even questioning calls made by the referee. There was a card in the game that all of the commentators, Aaron Cruden amongst them as their expert analysis, all agreed was not a card. Penalties given for things that just weren't there. I am a fan of your saying that, if a missed call decides the game, you didn't do enough to win. There were a lot of calls in this game. There were a lot that it's just like there was not a chance for them to properly be in this. Halftime they had leveled it 10 all, right? And then they got in first, I believe, in the second half. Just from there, the flurry of calls that went the way of the Chiefs that were clearly, I feel, incorrect calls. And from a New Zealand perspective, from the New Zealand commentators' perspective, also felt they were incorrect. I am really disappointed in this one because this had all the makings of a classic game, and I feel it was spoiled by the refereeing. And I want to say at this point, and make it very clear to all of our listeners here, this is not an excuse to go to the referees' personal social media and things like that and attack them. It is possible to say someone did a bad job and got something wrong without saying vile things about them personally and everything like that. So I just want to make that clear. But for me, this game was spoiled, was ruined by the refereeing. And we as rugby fans were all punished for it. We suffered from not seeing the best possible game that we could. And I think the Reds will be very disappointed in that as well. And they've held themselves remarkably in check after the display that I saw.
Yeah, and I'll say it as well. Players have bad games. We've just mentioned a few there. Riley Holhooper, Tanela Tupou have bad games. Referees also have bad games. It is part of the job as a rugby player to try and win the referee over. And again, you're not going to get the way of the whistle every game. And it would have been more impressive if the Reds had won, of course. But the situation they found themselves in, again, outside of their control. And as you said, this is a Reds team that I don't think are going to rest on those laurels and go, we had a bad referee, we shouldn't have won that game. Like, knowing Les Kiss, knowing the way this team's built, they're a type of team that are going to go, fuck it, like, we were at a disadvantage and we stuck in the fight. Look, it didn't go our way, but we're going to come back stronger for this. They'll review all of those incidents. They'll go back to it. They'll be like, what could we have done better? It's one of those, that's why I'm a big Les Kiss fan. The more and more I'm seeing what everyone else saw when the Reds signed him. So look, yeah, again, Reds hard done by. Against a tough Chiefs team, you're always going to be in trouble if you ain't winning the referee against the top of the table team at home. Yeah, look, but still right in the fight for number one spot, still in a very good position. Only 3 points behind the Reds on the same amount of games. Again, points differential will make that up. The Force, again, got the job done. You need to be winning those games if they want to make the finals. Carlos Lozano scoring another try to make it 11, I believe it was, for the season at the moment now. So, 2 more and he leads to all the forwards for most tries in Super Rugby, and I think 16's the most tries in a Super Rugby season. I mean, it would be something quite special when number 7 ends up doing that in this season, especially. Yeah.
They get their well-deserved bye this week. They're the only team that haven't had a bye yet, so they get a nice little break this week before taking on your Hurricanes in 2 weeks' time in Perth. So that'll be an excellent clash. Look, the Force are also just a very entertaining team to watch this year. The types of tries they score are all over the spectrum, like, grinding forward tries to spectacular backline tries, like just generally a very, very entertaining team at the moment.
Yeah, totally. It's, again, one of those teams that used to fold pretty easily, staying in the fight. Again, you think about their game last week against the Reds, their game this week against the Highlanders. You've got to win those ones, but you've got to be in the fight to be winning those ones as well. So very good for them. Drua couldn't quite replicate their previous years against the Crusaders, where Crusaders never won in Fiji. So this is the first win for the Crusaders in Fiji. And look, the Crusaders needed it after what was last week a shock. But I think everyone was slightly supporting the Drua to get a win there. Again, this puts Drua firmly at the bottom of the table with only one win. Do we see them bouncing back? Like, this was my thing. Like, this Drua team of previous years, made the finals last year, I believe. It's definitely taken a step back for them and their performances so far this year.
Yeah, I don't see them bouncing back. Like, they've only really, I guess, what you would say really performed strongly when they've been at home this year. I mean, the game against the Waratahs, yes and no. Like, that again was a bit of, their points weren't all on them in that game. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be very, very tough for the Drua to bounce back from the position they're in. It is, well, just because of the teams that are on top of them. They're right on top of them. The Blues, the Highlanders, Moana Pacifica, and the Hurricanes are the next 4 teams above them. And it's like, who do we see the Druid taking down out of that lot? Well, the clash with them and Moana Pacifica is always an entertaining one. That can go either way. Other than that, you look at the strength of those other teams this year, it's going to be very difficult for them. It just looks like this might not be their year.
They've got the Highlanders this week. And to me, this is, if they want to have any, it's in Otago. So I go, they want any chance to make the finals, they have to win this game. Like, if they don't win this game, I don't see them making the finals, no matter really what happens. I know
they need to prove they can travel away from home. The Waratahs have the same issue, don't get me wrong. They need to prove they can travel away from home as well.
Yeah, I know they've got a nice kind of run home, the Jura, so they could tick over some wins, but they want to make the finals. They've got to be there. Elsewhere, my Hurricanes take on the Crusaders at home, which I think will be a big game. Again, 2 teams vying for those top 6 spots. Crusaders up there at the moment, but the Hurricanes, we've seen the inconsistency of these Canes, and it's as typical as always that they be inconsistent. Your Waratahs have a massive game. You're hosting the Chiefs. Look, again, at home, where you'd prefer to be playing every team if you could. It's going to be a special one. What are you thinking from there?
It's going to be... I feel like McKellar really needs to swing the axe in some regards this week. Like, I don't think you take Taniela Tupou out of the team. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's still a gun, but you need to find some way of motivating him beyond that. Actually, they've just posted the team list literally 3 hours ago. So let me take a look at the team list here. Right. We got Bell, Dobbins, and both in the front row. Sinclair and Ben Grant in the second row. Charlie Gamble is out with Cinders with an illness, so Jamie Adamson steps into the 7 jersey with Liotta and Langy Gleeson there. Look, great. I would not anything I would change there, just with injuries and things like that. Like that, that's what I'd put down. Now, this is where I start to take issue. All right, not with the 9. Teddy Wilson has done a great job since he's been in for Jake Gordon, who's out injured, right? But Lawson Crichton at 10 and Joey Walton at 12. Like that, the Chiefs are just going to abuse that channel there. They're just going to abuse those 2 players. Like that's Tane Edmed should be. So Tane Edmed's not even on the bench for this game.
He's not.
Like I just don't understand.
There's no info about it.
No, nothing. So it's just a straight up benching, which is, just so strange to me. Like Lawson Crichton hasn't provided anything there. Joey Walton doesn't provide anything in inside center other than being able to run in a straight line. Yeah, it's not great. Keddy at 13 is great. I think Keddy's a great player. Good to have him back in the team. Riley, Kellaway, and Suoliti, fantastic back 3. Only thing I'd ask for there is for Jorgensen to be back, but he's injured, so not much to do there. Look, my initial sense is very doom and gloom with Crichton and Walton in the starting lineup. Like, I feel like the Chiefs are just going to be able to pick them apart there. Yeah, No, I don't have a very positive outlook for this game.
This Edmund situation, does McKellar have a daughter that we didn't know about?
Now he's got a redheaded grandchild that he wasn't expecting, or something like that.
Exactly. Like something's got to be. He's got to have some.
There's already been rumors that Edmed could go to the Brumbies now that Noah Lolesio has signed in Japan. And you know what? Good on him. Go for it, Tane. Like, get out of the toxic situation. Get yourself into some. Like, we know this is a guy that will not sit back and just take it. We saw him go to North Harbour last year to get more reps in when he was out of the Wallabies lineup. Finished the season starting for the Wallabies. So, obviously Schmidt sees something in him, and McKellar is just not seeing it. I don't know. Edmed, he's had his ups and downs, but I think he could really thrive in that Brumbies system under the tutelage of Stephen Larkham. So, I'd like to. I wouldn't be, as a Wallabies fan, wouldn't be opposed to it. As a Waratahs fan, sucks obviously, but Dan McKellar's got to find something in that 10 jersey. I don't think Lawson Crichton's it, to be honest. Maybe one of these young guys.
You mentioned Mr. Lolesio as well. Let's get your first-hand reaction to that as an Australian. Again, his points and the reasons why. I think they're valid. I understand.
Yeah.
My issue is, to me, the gold jersey still holds more power than that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a bit of bullshit, to be honest. Like, there's all this coaching uncertainty. I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, fuck's sake, like Schmidt's still going to be coaching you for the Lions series. Basically saying, fuck the Lions series, I don't want to play it by signing this. Yeah. Also, like, the signs are all pretty clearly pointing to Les Kiss being the next coach. But as well as that, like, there's been uncertainty in past years about Wallabies coaches, but this is the first that we're hearing of it. I think it's a lot of fluffy reasons so he can avoid saying the real reason, which is he wants to get paid. And you know what? If he just come out and said it's a lot of money, and I am, God, let's see how old he is now. No, Lolesio, I am 25 years old. I've had a good few years in Australian rugby, but I need to go out and get paid now. I want to have a family. I want to do all these things. I would have respected him more, but I don't think those reasons are his real reasons. I think if they are his real reasons, it's a very emotional overreaction from him for being like, oh, we don't know who the coach is. Like, it's uncertain. It's like, fucking get over it. You're in the middle of a Super Rugby season, Like, you have certainty about who your coach is there, one of the greatest 10s in, rugby history, and you're getting some of the best tutelage you could ever get. Like, you're in one of the best setups you could ever be in. You're in the prime position to be the Wallabies 10 for a Lions series, as well as the next home World Cup. And you're throwing it away. Next World Cup, you're going to be 27, 28 years old, and you're throwing it away because of uncertainty about the coach. Who gives a shit if there's uncertainty about the coach? You have a Lions series and then a home World Cup. Like, that's certain. Whoever they appoint as coach, there's some certain objectives in there that you should be focusing on. So, yeah, look, overall, I mean, I don't want to, suddenly go on an anti-Noah Lolesio tirade. I've been positive about his development last year specifically, but, look, it's disappointing, and it's a disappointing step from a player who I think most Wallabies fans would say that's probably his moniker has been disappointing,
Yeah, and there's to me, I'm the same. I'm like, I totally understand, yeah. If you're like, look, I've been through the ringer before with the uncertainty, with the changing coaches. I get that. You are going into the best years of Australian rugby in the past 10 years. Like, this isn't, you ain't going, if there was nothing on, say, British and Irish Lions series wasn't happening, say you weren't hosting the World Cup. You're giving away an opportunity to play British and Irish Lions potentially, because it wouldn't surprise me if Schmidt goes, well, bugger it. Like, again, I'm here to make sure Australian rugby gets back to where it was, and I want to be the starter of that. And to do that, I need a 10 who's going to be in Australia. It wouldn't surprise me, again, any incoming coach anyone who's in Australian rugby goes, well, if he's not going to be here, why select him to be our post boy? Yes, we want to win the series, but is he that much better than our other 10 options around? In my opinion, he's not that much better. So I go, he's still the best. Let's not get it wrong. He's still the best. And that's where I go, you're the best player in your country, a World Cup at home, a British and Irish Lions series, and you're 25 years old. It's not like you're Richie Mo'unga, who's like, 30, 31-ish, somewhere in that age group, who has nothing. Like, there was nothing for the next 4 years. For him to sign on, it was very different. I go, I understand rugby's a fickle game and you could get injured and your career could be over. I get that. But I go, he had another 5 years in the gold jersey before he could have gone and made some money. And he would have still made a shit ton of money. So I agree. I think it's an emotional decision to go. And I just don't think the coaching uncertainty is his reason. And that is, I think the people in his corner haven't given him the right advice. I think, again, as you said, if it was for the money and he's like, look, I just want to set up my family, the Wallabies jersey puts a lot of pressure on me, obviously does. I want to go back to enjoying my rugby, sign this contract, earn some money while I can, while my body's still healthy, play some good rugby. Cool. Like, again, we're big on that in this podcast. But to go out and go uncertainty around the coach, I also think, look, I understand it. Yes, that is uncertain. But just the opportunities coming up, you have to be like so sure that you don't want this.
Yeah.
Like, he has to be so sure that he doesn't want the gold jersey for these next opportunities to make this decision. And I don't think uncertainty of the coach is so sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, there is an uncertainty about the Wallabies coaching that much because the Wallabies currently have a coach, right? They have a coach until the end of the British and Lions series. And the improvement that we've seen under Joe Schmidt in just the year he's been in, surely you can't think that there's nothing more to be learned under Joe Schmidt just for that series. And it's also, as we have emphasized, it's a once-in-a-rugby career type thing. There's also the fact that the coaching search is active and ongoing and is due to be resolved shortly, and is a front runner that is very likely to be the coach, right? Stephen Larkham has just pulled out of that as well, and maybe that's something to do with it. Maybe he only wanted to play in the gold jersey if he was going to be playing under Stephen Larkham. But Stephen Larkham's pulled out of it, but it looks now more and more likely it's going to be Les Kiss, right? In a similar situation to Checker with the Waratahs and the Wallabies, splitting time between the two. And I'm not opposed to that kind of arrangement because it definitely gives you more hands-on time with the players, and it also gives you a chance to see the players from the other perspective of what they can do against you and your team and things like that. Having to game plan against your players can often be it's beneficial as game planning for them. So I don't buy it. But look, it opens the door now for a number of interesting possibilities. I think the next two front runners after Lolesio is going to be Ben Donaldson at the Western Force and Tom Liner up at the Reds. And it's hard to say who would be the front runner out of the two of those at the moment. I think Donaldson, you've got more of a known quantity. Liner, you've seen what he's done for the Reds this year, and he's probably got more potential than what Donaldson has as well. But I had a third name thrown out there this week that I think presents a very interesting situation, and that's James O'Connor, currently playing the Crusaders. He could still play 10 for the Wallabies, and he's in the Super Rugby system. Even though he's not playing for the Australian team, he's in the Super Rugby system, that he's still in that Joe Schmidt sort of remit of local players. He provides experience as well. And, you go back to that last World Cup, the disaster of a World Cup in 2023. There was such a lack of experience amongst key positions in that group that, where Carter Gordon was just essentially thrown to the wolves. That, you didn't take Bernard Foley, you didn't take Quade Cooper, didn't take anyone that had been to a World Cup before in the 10 jersey. It's like, you need sometimes just even having O'Connor in the larger training squad for the Wallabies, I think would be beneficial to whoever is named the starting 10.
Have they announced for the British and Irish Lions that he's only going to select local players? My assumption he will no.
I haven't announced anything like that. I would assume they won't just pick local players. Like someone like Skelton, I'm sure they'll bring him into consideration.
So I guess, and again, another pitch onto the experience he'd get, because I know Bernard Foley's still playing at an extremely high level over in Japan. Again, slightly younger than Quade Cooper, I believe. Don't question, I may be wrong, but
have a look.
I know Quade's getting old. Still in great shape, though, don't get me wrong, but I do know Quade is getting a bit older. 2 years younger. Bernard Foley's 2 years younger than Quade. So I go, if he's playing at such a high level still there, again, just for experience, to be in the camp, if you do select players like Liner and Donaldson, it's not a bad shout. My assumption is they'll have a pretty damn big squad as well. So, again, and if he does put his hand forward, it could be a good option going forward there. Because, I don't, again, without Ed Med starting at 10 for the Waratahs, you are like, and the way Creighton's kind of gone, there's only two options other than Lolesio, and it's the two. You've obviously mentioned Liner and Donaldson. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, I guess, that 10 jersey, who Schmidt goes with. What I wanted to get your opinion on is who starts at number 7 for the Lions and open side flanker. And the reason I'm having this discussion with you is I currently have a bet with one of the lads from the rugby team, a Welshman, and he reckons 100 quid on the line that Jac Morgan will start at 7 for one of the tests. My assumption is he's not going to get close to anywhere starting in the test. I love Jac Morgan. I think he's a fantastic player. I just think the talent there, the Farrell as a coach, the English, the way they played, the fact that Welsh don't know how to win games. There's a different direction. But I'm interested to hear your opinion from an Aussie, and you're obviously a little favoured to the Welsh. But.
Well, yeah. And look, the first name, actually, Fraser McWright was asked about this. And the first name he threw out there was Jac Morgan as someone who could start at 7 for the Lions. And I'll play, I guess, a little bit of devil's advocate against you here. For it to be British and Irish Lions, I don't know what the selection criteria is. Do they need to pick at least one player from every nation? Well, they might be inclined to just to keep it going. So, and if they needed to pick someone from Wales, it could do a lot worse than Jac Morgan and putting him in the 7 jersey as well. They could just rotate the 7. Like I think he could. Don't think it's as far removed from the realm of possibilities that he starts one of the tests as you think it is. He doesn't need to start all of them. It's a good kind of headache for Farrell to have. It's a tough one. I would not be shocked if he does start a test. I would not be shocked.
And this is my thinking is there's names out there that I think are better than Jac Morgan. And I think to start with, Jack Willis, Toulouse flanker, is having an unreal season. Now, they've already said the British and Irish Lions can select players that, unlike the English can't select Jack Willis because he's playing in France, the British and Irish Lions can. So anyone who's eligible to play for the British and Irish Lions, i.e. your nationality is Irish, Scottish, Wales, English, you can play for the British and Irish Lions. Jack Willis is having an all-time great season playing in a French league that is the most competitive league in the world. So to me, he's number 1 on the list. There's been talk about how great Henry Pollock is, the young 21-year-old. I think he's just 20 still. For Northampton, playing for England, coming through. Josh van der Fleer as well is another one that we know Farrell knows, likes Rory Darge. There are so many options there. We haven't even said if they go Ben Earl at 7 or a Curry at 7. There are so many options that I just don't think Jac Morgan ends up in the 7 jersey. Don't get me wrong, I think he's in the squad. he may even get a bench spot. I just think Farrell's going to start there's a whole host of other players he could start in there. So that's where my thinking is there's just too many good players and the Welsh don't know how to win games. And on a British and Irish Lions series, you need a team that knows how to win games. And again, this isn't me taking away from how great of a player Jac Morgan is. I love Jac Morgan. I think he's a great player. But they suck, the Welsh. And so, like, is it easy to look good in a shit team? Maybe it is. You know what I mean? Like, because you don't stand out as much because...
No, I don't. I think it's harder than anything with such a team sport like rugby. I think it's harder. You know, game like a more individual game like rugby league, I think it's easier to stand out as a good player in a shit team. You know, but I think in a game like Union, it's a lot harder because you're relying a lot more on your other teammates.
I don't know. You look good because no one else can do the same bit that you can do. That's what I'm saying. When he carries, it's like, oh yeah, he made a good carry. Well, no one else has made a good carry for all of Wales and all of the Six Nations, so that's why. I don't know. Again, look, it's going to be interesting. Lots more questions to be answered as we come up to the British and Irish Lions series, which is going to be the most fantastic series. God, I love when these roll around. And the world, for now, I think that's us done. Look, another exciting week in Super Rugby, another week closer, as we said. Like, all these players in the Australian jersey need to start really ramping it up. Like, this is where injuries start to, you know, if you get an injury now for 8 or so weeks, 12 weeks, you're in doubt. So this is where you want to bubble wrap, but also be playing at your best level. So it's really hard for players, but it's going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm excited for that. Stay tuned again. Next week we'll be back again. All rugby news and all the Super Rugby updates. For now, I've been Luke. That has been Husey. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.